And I'm grabbing these from our patron questions on the Discord channel. So if you want to have your questions answered and get them to take priority over everyone else's, then become a patron. This one's from Palmer. It's a good question. And he said, how do you create an integrated group of characters at the beginning of a campaign without it being either forced or trite? So I wanted to answer this question first because I know how my group does it, and we use a little trick that we learned from playing Kids on Bikes. And we actually just used this in setting up our Rime of the Frost Maiden game. And Kids on Bikes, what it does is it has you... So Kids on Bikes, if you don't know, it's made by who? I don't know. I can't remember. But it's like you're playing... what is that show? Oh gosh, I'm so bad with
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. It's like a Stranger Things-esque role-playing game, and you play these kids or teenagers, or you can be an adult in the group, but it's this mix, and it's basically Stranger Things, the RPG. But
which we have an actual play of, so you want to go and check.
Yeah,
that out.
exactly. You should check it out. The series that we have, was a wonderful game. What they have you do when you're setting up the game is you create your characters, and in that process, you sort of discover what your relationships are. And I very deliberately say discover what your relationships are because that's the sort of the style that it is. It's not really that everybody's laying out their backstories and explicitly... I mean, it is explicit in a way, but let me just explain what it is. So you go around round-robin style around the table, and each person takes a turn starting with, and there's a table you have that you roll on. You roll a d20, and then you look at a question that's on this table, and it's a question that you are, that the person to your left is answering about you. So, as an example, I got the table pulled up while you guys were talking so that I could give this answer. So, for example, we'd be going around the table, and you would say, okay, you've got your character, and I'd roll, let's say I rolled a 4. It would say, what trait about this character that they despise do you genuinely... Let's do a different one. That was a convoluted word one. Let's roll number 6. It says, what role did this character play in the best day of your life? Okay, so the person to your left. And so you have to answer that question. What role did this character play in the best day of your life? And what it forces you to do is just think, like, what are these moments that existed in our history that sort of... Because when you're talking about friends and relationships that people have, those are always dictated by these moments that you have together, right? Mm-hmm. So and form like the shared history of you and that person. And so you start building these, by answering these questions, you start building these very deep relationships with each other that are just organically built out of these random questions, and it just spawns conversations that you have together. Oh, yeah, well, you did that, and you said this about this special thing about my character. That makes me think that we were probably like this. And then so you go around, and it's all these positive things, and then you go around again and answer negative questions about each other. There's a whole nother table. You go around again, and each take turns rolling, and one of the ones on there would be like, what is this character doing right now that's putting you both at risk, for example? So it might be that, this person is the golden child, maybe your brother and sister. This person's the golden child, and they're hiding, a pack of cigarettes in my underneath the like underneath my bed, and if my parents were to find that out, then you answer these sorts of questions about each other, and it sort of by making that up, it develops these relationships with each other that we have found just create a really deep organic history out of these random rolls on a table. I love it. And again, we did it on Kids and Bikes, and now we're using the same table in our D&D game because we loved it so much. So,
yeah, I love that. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I think there's lots of systems that do the session 0 character creation ask each other questions, let's answer, and let's figure out what are, how we affect each other and what we know about each other. So, but yeah, I think it's really dependent. When it comes to the question that Halmer asked of without it being forced or trite, I think it comes down to a question of, I guess, trust, and that first off, that the questions need to be meaningful. Like that question that your example of, the best day of my life. Like, so that already makes you think, what was the best day of my life? And then second, how did this person expect?
Exactly.
Right. So to like add a couple of extra layers into the question that like feed a little more than just something that's very simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Cliff? Do you do anything in particular on a regular basis in your games to kind of flesh things out, or do you kind of handle it a different way?
I think session 0 is definitely something we do with every campaign. Take some time to really just talk about what the campaign's going to be like a little bit, what people are kind of hoping to play, as well as getting into their character creation as sort of a shared group activity, as well as the individual decisions that are made. And I do remember I have quite a few times had people go around and answer questions that kind of put them on the spot about, say, what was one time where you. Let me think of something specific here. Okay, I can't think of something specific. I've done this before, but yeah, oftentimes they're questions relating to their contacts, but also things about the past. Oh, yeah, here's one. What was one time where this person totally screwed up a job that you were both on, and you had to cover for them? What was that? And did both players sort of tell that story and make that up together, and it gives them a shared history. So yeah, like what you mentioned with Kids on Bike, creating some sort of sense of shared history.
Yeah, that sounds exactly
also,
like that. Yeah.
Also, I do want to say yes, at the beginning it is forced, and that's okay. It's okay for it to be forced because you're starting a new thing, and you gotta smack those rocks together to get the sparks to happen. And eventually you'll get some inspiration and things will become building, and you'll have more of a shared history that you'll both remember because you experienced together at the gaming table. And it will also be easier to extrapolate things that you might have remembered doing in the past or help bring that to life more.
Mm-hmm.
I do think trust, like you said, Oz, is really important also to carry on with this conversation in the vein of what Cliff is saying, because to use again the Kids on Bikes question, we all who are playing together trust each other enough to kind of because some of these questions ask you to say to make up something about somebody else's character, and we all trust each other enough to do that, to hand our characters over to each other and say, okay, yes, here, say something about my character and I will go with it, And,
yeah, it's very important for people to not feel so attached and have 100% editorial control of their character until they're finally playing them, right? In the character creation phase, this is your time for things to build slowly and for you to mold this person, right? And part of that molding is, how do I interact with people? And actually, this ties in sort of a little bit to what Palmer was saying in chat, where, like part of the forced trite thing, been in so many games where you all start in a tavern and that's kind of meh, right? And even if you have a dragon swoop in and like burn the tavern down, and then you start with the big combat, and then that's, it's like, still you all meet in a tavern. That is, I think part of that is like, because the GM's responsibility is to, start the campaign. And sometimes when you don't have, when the GM doesn't have information about what these characters know about each other and why they're even around each other, then the default is, okay, well, you're hanging out in the tavern drinking, and then for whatever reason, you're all brought together. Like the GM, it's on the GM to figure that out. Same thing with the players. When the players don't know each other, it's on them to figure out what their relationships are. So, and that has to be figured out at the table rather than prior. And having stuff like that informing you prior gives you so much of a richer jumping off kind of rocket from your first session. than starting in a tavern and not having that information.